Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of the TEPSA Talk Podcast. I'm your host, Todd Dlouhy, the Director of Culture and Strategic Leadership here at the Texas Elementary Principals and Supervisors Association. We are thrilled every week to bring you different thought leaders from around the world, and this week we have one of the most creative people I've ever met, Miss Sarah Dlouhy. Sarah, thank you so much for being on here. Tell our people a little bit about who you are.
Oh, hello. I'm so excited to be here. I'm a pro podcast connoisseur listener, not a pro podcast talker. So bear with me. Hi, I'm Sarah. I have been a teacher for 9 years. I left the classroom to pursue a different avenue in graphic design. I did that for 2 years and then decided wasn't quite what I wanted to do with my life. So I decided to start my own LLC and try to change schools.
I love it.
Basically.
Well, Sarah, I remember when you were in the classroom and I followed your account on social media because you did so many cool things when it came to classroom design, whether it was what you put on the walls, the seating, the lighting, the decorations. When did that become something that you really saw a need and a purpose for in the classroom instead of just doing it like most people do their classroom?
Well, so my classroom wasn't always like that. My very first classroom, I went to Lakeshore. I bought like those, like perforated decals that I just stuck to the walls. But in that classroom, I had one sliver of a window in my door. And I remember when I got my first lamp, I think I was in my second year of teaching, and I put a lamp at my desk. And I remember just how it transformed the feel of the room. And so once I had one lamp, I was like, oh, I don't want these overhead lights on anymore. And I got more lamps. And then I just really started to feel at home in my classroom. And then with that homey, cozy feeling came, okay, let's start bringing stuff from my home to my classroom. And then the decor started and never stopped. And I think the kids really felt it too. Like once I had like 3 or 4 lamps in my classroom and I didn't have the overhead lights on, they had like a different energy about them when we were doing activities. And so I just always wanted to bring that homey vibe to the classroom and just make it a little bit cozier, because sometimes classrooms can feel really sterile and blank.
Yep.
You
Well,
know?
and there's so much research that talks about the lighting and even plants and things like that and how much that impacts kids. And sometimes we don't actually see it until we do it. And so I love that you were like, I experienced a change. So then I brought in more and then I could see the change in my students as well. And, a lot of the stuff that you are known for is your design eye and the way that you can see things and choose colors and paints and things like that. Has that always been a part of your journey, or was that something you just recently discovered was a passion of yours?
Ooh, that's a good question. I've actually been trying to unpack this myself, just with my own personal growth and reflection. I think I've always loved decorating my bedroom. Like that's, the first aspect of it. And again, with the lighting, like I remember just like moving lamps around in my room and just getting like my room would feel like a brand new room. And I loved how it could change my mood and make me feel cozier, I guess. I feel like I've used the word cozy 10 times already. It's the theme of the podcast, I guess. But I think for me, I grew up in kind of a chaotic home. My parents got divorced when I was 7, and I lived with my dad for 2 weeks, and then I lived with my mom for 2 weeks. And so I did not have a home, like a place to really call home. Both homes were very different. Both rooms were very different. Like everything that I had at each place was different. And so I think I really just tried to make my bedroom a safe space. And
Mhm.
I think that's when I had more of a critical eye about what spaces felt like and
Mhm.
how I could feel the safest.
Yeah.
Kids who have high ACE scores, they got stuff. And
Yeah.
so I think I just wanted to feel safe. And I think
Mhm.
that carried through into my adulthood and especially into my classrooms and recognizing that a lot of kids don't have safe spaces
Yeah.
at home and cozy spaces at home, and just really wanting to provide that for my students as well.
Now, what about the painting and designing and artistic eye there?
I think it's just been
A
through
natural evolution
osmosis.
kind of
Yeah,
thing?
I think just through observing. I think I've been a natural observer for most of my life,
Mhm.
and I've been able to be in spaces and see designs, on anything from like a folder to, I don't know, decor at Home Goods.
Yeah.
And I think the I don't know, just naturally came about. There's really no science behind it. There's
Yeah.
no, training. It's just something that I've gotten along my journey.
That is so wild to me when I see what you can create and know that it just naturally flows out of you through the practice and looking at other things. And so I love that you incorporate all that in your classroom. And then at some point, that started seeping out into your campus a little bit. And then
Mhm.
you got to do a little bit of designing around the campus. Why
Yeah.
was that important for you not to just stay in your room, do your thing? Like, why was that important for you to start kind of transforming little spots of a campus?
Well, I was really fortunate to have an administrator or principal who saw my strengths and wanted to utilize them. I
Yeah.
think a lot of times administrators don't see each individual person's
Mhm.
strength. And so mine did. And when I went to his school, our old campus, he saw what I did with my classroom and was like,
Mhm.
"Oh, what can you do for the school? Do you want to design t-shirts?" Like that's really where everything kind of
Yeah,
got started.
yeah,
He saw something in me, and then in turn that helped me see something in myself that I can offer, big picture. So I started changing things at that school, and then when he got a brand new school, it was like game on when he texted me that we had this new school and that I basically had a blank canvas to design everything. I was so excited. So from logo to murals on the wall to I mean everything. I
Mhm.
got to design it all. And I it's hard to put into words what it means to be able to
Right.
like take a step back and look at a school and
Mhm.
know that you had a hand in every little design aspect. It really was such a privilege, and I've loved being able to do that for other schools after that.
Yeah,
Uh, School really it's the most important place for so
yeah,
many of these kids, and to just know that kids can go to a place that feels bright and
mhm,
fun and thoughtful, like whoever
mhm,
designed it had some thought in it
yeah.
for them. It just means the world to me, and I feel really, really fortunate that I had a principal that saw that in me.
Well, I think there's two really important things that you shared there. And one of the things I talk about often is that as a great leader, you have to be seeing those strengths in others, even when they don't quite see it themselves, but
Yeah.
then utilizing that. I mean, I think it's
Mhm.
great for you to know, you're a classroom teacher, but your administrator saw you've got an eye for some stuff here. Would you like to come like help out this? And then that empowers you and makes you
Right.
work harder at what you're doing because it's even you feel even more valued and part of
Right.
something important. But I
Yeah.
think you also brought up another great point about kids don't want to come into a sterile environment. That doesn't
Mhm.
feel good for anybody. That's why nobody feels super comfortable walking into a doctor's office because
Yep.
it's so unpersonal.
Right.
And so I think that what you're talking about and thinking about the design of your campus and how your hallways look, the entrance looks, the colors that were used, but also you used a really important word there, and I thought that was the thoughtfulness behind
Mm-hmm.
things. And I think that I know when I walk into a school and was like, oh, I know the color palette. They just went and picked this and was like, hey, we're
Yep.
building a school. We need these 6 colors. Go.
Yep. Yep.
But when you walk into some spaces, you can tell like, oh, they really thought like, look at how this flows into this. Look at this little element here. And as you've started this new venture of working with schools as well, I know one of the first things that I saw you posting about was helping them with this house system and
Mm-hmm.
designing each little entrance into the hallway and the color and the design of what it was going to look like, and how you worked with the school to really see like, what are your goals? What do you want this to convey? And then here's how I look like it. And it's not all straight
Mm-hmm.
lines, like there's a
Right.
flow to it. How does that process look when you work with the campus to try to identify some of those areas where they want to spruce things up?
Well, okay, so I have 2 very specific examples. So the first school that I worked with once I started this whole business adventure, it really was a blank canvas.
Mhm.
They had their mascot and they knew they wanted houses, and they kind of already had like an idea for the houses. So I really was kind of able to take their mascot, take their idea, and make it into something cohesive that already kind of integrated with the school's culture. So that was like an easy, I'm coming in, I'm doing my thing, taking it to the next level for you guys.
Yeah.
I just met with a school last week, which is a more established school. They've been around for over 20 years. And I walked in and their foyer was all saguaro cactuses. It was beautiful, like beautiful mural. Probably costs a lot of money.
Yeah.
But I was like, oh, saguaros, that's interesting, because saguaros don't grow here in Las Vegas where we live. So I was kind of like, I wonder like what the saguaro vibe is about. And then I go into the front office, and it's just kind of like a mix of a bunch of different things. And then I meet with the principal, and I find out that their mascot is a bobcat. And I'm like, okay, bobcats, saguaro cactuses. And I'm like trying to like keep
Connect
it
it
all
all.
together to make it work. And it was just so just disjointed. And so I'm trying to work with him to see how we can kind of bring it all together to feel cohesive and intentional. I think a lot of times schools, especially year to year, and if they have different administrators along the way, it's just not, there's too many things that we're trying, and the culture isn't there.
Yeah.
So I think that's just something that you have to be really thoughtful and considerate in making decisions for your school. So I'm working with him, and hopefully we can come to a middle ground to kind of bring that culture back into the school, whether it's with saguaros or a new bobcat. I'm not totally sure what we're doing, but I think just approaching things with an intentionality of what is the culture of the school and how is this going to aid in that.
Well, and families and students can feel that. And when you are somewhere where you're comfortable, you work harder, you're more engaged, you're more committed to what's happening. And so if somebody's listening today and they're thinking, well, I understand what you're talking about, Sarah and Todd. Like, we want to spruce ours up too, but like, we don't even know where to begin. Like, it's such an overwhelming consideration. What is your advice for helping an administrator just know even where to begin with starting a process of really focusing on how things look and how they could do it different or better?
I think honing in on 1 or 2 things that you really want your school to be known for. Like the school that I opened, we really wanted houses to be the heart of our school. So everything was kind of around the houses. So if it's your mascot, if it's your motto, like whatever it is that makes your school unique and special, I think kind of take that and then build upon that, whether that's the color scheme, the font, like all of it can build around that one thing.
Well, and I know what I'm going to hear when we do this episode and release it is that I love these ideas, but we're not allowed to paint. We're not allowed to do this or that. And I know that you've run into the same thing. And we all know that's just an excuse. There are ways you can do it outside of painting. So when you have somebody listening right now who's thinking that's their first response is, well, we're not allowed to do that. What are some other ways you could say, well, here's what you could think about too?
Giant banners are one of my favorite go-tos to fill a space, to add some color, to bring some personality. They're relatively cheap.
Mhm.
You can make them look cute. I think that's a really easy one. And just like big posters. My biggest thing is if you can't paint and you're trying to, make a space pop and feel good, you want to have as many big, significant pieces as possible versus a bunch of little pieces.
Right.
I've been in a lot of schools where they really try to like go all in with the decor, but the hallways just feel cluttered. Like
Yeah.
it's just too much. Where they have 15 posters on a wall, and I'm like, ugh, if you just made 3 of those posters really big, it
Mhm.
would have had a big impact and just made the space look a little cleaner.
I love that. Well, Sarah, I know your full-time gig is
Mhm,
working with schools and groups to help them relook at their spaces and see how you can help them design different things. And I know you mentioned you're already working with another one right now. And so
mhm.
if people are interested in connecting with you and kind of seeing some of your stuff or seeing like, hey, can we like schedule a conversation just to see if you're even a fit? How can they get a hold of you?
So you can DM me on my Instagram, which is Creative School Daze, DAZE, like we're in a daze, creative schools. Or there's lots of links on my website, creativeschooldays.com. You can just send me an inquiry there.
And you've also got really fantastic monthly
Mm,
screensavers, wallpapers, phone things that y'all can go and check out on creativeschooldays.com as
yep.
well. Sarah, thank you so much for sharing
Oh,
some of your
sure.
expertise today and helping our school leaders see how they can rethink the community and the design of their campus and do things differently. We hope you all enjoyed this episode and make sure you join us next week for an all new guest as we share different thought leaders from around the world.